it's Whitney, and welcome to the EVG Uncensored channel where I share my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on things. If you are here because of my last video about Asina O'Neill, welcome back. I am blown away by how many views that video got. I really never expected it. It was a way for me to share my feelings and put something up on the channel, and it seemed like it really resonated with people. It was something people were searching for. And I hope that it got you thinking about a lot of the ideas that I was tossing around in that video. It certainly created a lot of great conversations for me in my life because a lot of my friends have started talking with me about it, and I've been thinking about it so much, and a lot has been shifting, and I think in a very positive way. If you haven't seen an update yet, I also want to suggest that you check out Asina's new website, Let's Be Game Changers. It's really, really impressive. And as a result, I'm now reading Daring Greatly by Brené Brown, which is a book that I've been wanting to read for a while. So thank you to Asina. She's probably not watching because she's not really connected on social media as much in the same way. But anyways, here we are today, and that video ended up leading to this video because multiple people in the past 24 hours have asked my opinion on something kind of related, and that is the book Breaking Vegan and the woman behind it, Jordan Younger, because she has been in the press a lot with her book, which just came out a few days ago. And more specifically, a few people have brought up this article that was written about her in her book in the New York Post, and it was entitled, "My Vegan Diet Almost Killed Me." And, you know, I've been hearing a lot about Jordan over the past few years, and I've actually met Jordan many times. She lives in LA, and we have several mutual friends. I was introduced to her and ended up going to her app launch party, whenever that was, like a year or so ago. And we've seen each other at many events. We've hung out one-on-one before, and Jordan's a really nice person. So all of this drama with her book and public image aside, I just want to say that I've met Jordan, I like Jordan, and we've got a really small community there. I know a lot of people in the vegan and healthy living world, so it's always interesting to see like how the public reacts to people without really knowing who they are. Like the people behind Thug Kitchen, for example, they're great people, and yet there's so much drama around them. Or Vani from Food Babe, she's an amazing woman, and yet people love to target her, and Asina and Jordan. If you ever want to know about somebody in the community, feel free to ask me because I probably met them, and I'd love to give you a more balanced, realistic perspective on them than whatever the media projects. But that's not the point of this video. This video is I really want to dive deeply into what's going on with Breaking Vegan and my personal opinion on it and some of the things that I've been reading and what I think that this conversation can lead to, because I'm always trying to look for the positive route, like what can we take out of a situation. I think it's so easy for us to build a lot of drama about things. We thrive on that as a society. We read the news and we immediately either agree with it or disagree with it, or we want to talk about it, we want to get outraged, we want to feel so many emotions, and that's just kind of what we're addicted to. And, you know, I think that the Asina O'Neill story can be really tied into this because I think that we just become very dependent on drama through all of this social media and through all of this, you know, traditional media as well. And my biggest recommendation is to take a step back, take a deep breath, really ground yourself and think about what is most important to you, not your desire to get outraged or your desire to believe something that you read or see on TV because it's not always true. So I read through the New York Post article and had a lot of different feelings about it. I already started having some feelings about this. I've known about Breaking Vegan, the book, coming out for a while, and I've had a lot of mixed emotions about it. Before I even met Jordan, I remember hearing people talk about her because they were, you know, outraged or upset or confused as to why she went from a vegan blogger to a non-vegan blogger. And, you know, it's understandable because, you know, as vegans, I think veganism is very attached to our identity. That's not entirely who we are, but it's a huge part of many of our lives, especially those of us who are content creators like myself. We're blogging, we're Instagramming, we're on all these social media, on YouTube, and it becomes very tied into who we are. And so there's many times where we just really want to defend it, right? And we really want to do our best to promote it and to get more people on board because it's something that we so passionately believe in. So I understand why vegans are frustrated with this whole thing. You know, for me, when I heard the title Breaking Vegan and saw the cover, I thought, that's really interesting. I don't feel that great about it because I feel like it's promoting something that might not be the full reality. And actually, I would really like to read the book because I don't like to make assumptions about things without really getting to know them myself. Just like I said before, I'm not going to make an opinion on somebody until I interact with them one-on-one and multiple times. Sometimes you can't help but form an opinion on someone, but really to outwardly express an opinion, I don't think it's fair to say something about someone you don't know or something you don't know. So I think it's very important that if you really want to talk about Breaking Vegan, you gotta read the book. And it would be helpful for you to meet Jordan or to really explore the work that she's doing before you feel like you know everything. So everything that I'm saying now is based on not reading this book, just reading the articles and knowing Jordan. But the title for me feels like it's going against veganism. It's saying that something about veganism is broken or that you need to break veganism or it's unhealthy, especially these articles like my vegan diet almost killed me. Of course, like that's going to make people think that there's something wrong with veganism and that it's unhealthy. And as a vegan, I have experienced tremendous health benefits. In fact, my whole life has improved through being vegan, and that's exactly why I do what I do with Eco Vegan Gal, is I want to show other people how they too have the opportunity to be healthier and happier through that lifestyle. So it's interesting to see people saying the exact opposite. But I'm very curious because I don't think that's fully the truth here. I feel like either Jordan, her publisher, or the two combined came up with this title because it would appeal to more people if it seemed like it was the story of what was wrong with the vegan diet, right? And to me, that just feels kind of shady. So I guess I feel uncomfortable about that, right? It feels like a manipulation. And then, of course, with all these news stories, they're sensationalizing things. Like in the New York Post, they're saying the diet made her so ill, she lost her hair and her period stopped. And it's like, that is really not the case, as we'll get into in a little bit. There was a quote from Jordan saying, "It stopped me from leading a normal life full of social activities and other interests." Well, I think you have to read into that line because it stopped her, but that doesn't mean that it will stop everybody that goes vegan, because I've been vegan for 12 years and veganism has actually improved my life, improved my social life, and it doesn't conflict with my interests. So that you can't make that a generalized statement. You have to see that as that was the case for Jordan. But I also feel like they're twisting it around, because when she said it was, maybe she wasn't saying that vegan was. She might have been saying that orthorexia was. And I think that that's the big thing going on here, is that so many people are equating her orthorexia with veganism. But she's part of perpetuating that by using the title Breaking Vegan. That's directly connecting veganism with orthorexia, at least in the public's mind. And I think that's where the real damage is being done by these articles and by the book title. In some of these articles, they say younger Jordan forced herself to eat a small portion of wild salmon. Within a week, her period was restored, as if to say that you're going to lose your period if you're vegan, and the only way to cure it is to eat fish. And it's like, that's a very anecdotal piece of information. I don't know any vegan that's lost their period through their diet. And that's not to say it doesn't happen. It's just to say that it's a very rare thing and a very personal thing. I don't think that happened as a result of her veganism. But remember, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, so this is all opinion based. She said her body was dying to get back on track, as if veganism put her so off track, right? But again, we're going to get into further depth about this in a moment. And Anyways, okay, well, let's just jump right into that. I'm reading off some notes here because I want to make sure I stay as concise as possible. Really, all of this story behind Jordan is more about orthorexia than it is about anything else. So if you're not familiar with orthorexia, it makes sense. I didn't know that much about it. In fact, some people say that Jordan is the poster child for orthorexia because no one was really talking about it before her. So in a way, Jordan really has helped a lot of people who have an eating disorder, who have orthorexia. Orthorexia is about people that are only consuming food that are considered healthy, only consuming it. But it's a very extreme version. It's something that is much more than about just trying to eat healthy. I know plenty of people who are seemingly obsessed with eating healthy, but that doesn't mean that they have orthorexia. I think it's, again, a very, very extreme thing. And sometimes there can be some gray lines there. And in Jordan's case, it was orthorexia. And she says outright she never disliked veganism as a whole. She said she felt like her relationship with the lifestyle was not healthy, and she wanted to stay as far away from the extremism as possible. So Jordan herself is saying that it's not veganism, it's about the extreme side of it. She saw veganism as a cure-all. She says in the beginning it was very cleansing and detoxing. She had this rush of adrenaline and energy because her stomach problems seemed to be resolved. She started cleansing religiously, and soon the cycle of cleansing, getting too hungry, binging on solid food, feeling guilty, and cleansing again became the norm. So we've got some things going on here. Jordan was viewing veganism as a cure-all and as a cleanse, right? She was going to that extreme of veganism. Most vegans I know are not doing the diet to cleanse themselves. Some people do it, like Beyonce or something like that. But most vegans that stay vegan long-term are doing it for animals, for the environment, for their overall health, or all three combined, a mixture of them. But they're not doing it for like some temporary cleanse or some temporary cure, right? Although I will say, I'm reading the Forks Over Knives plan right now, and the doctors in here, there's so many case studies that veganism, the plant-based diet, can really help you prevent and reverse disease. So it could technically be viewed as a cure. So it just depends on how extreme you get with it. And if it's tied into this orthorexia, then that's where the trouble really begins. And in fact, a doctor in one of the articles I was reading about Jordan said, "There's nothing wrong with eating local or being a vegetarian or vegan. I think a lot of those diets are inherently valuable. The problem is that we have moralized eating, weight, food, and exercise. Food has become presented more and more as the answer." Right? That's the problem. If we see veganism as the answer to all of our problems, then we can become very attached to it. It can become very extreme, and that could lead to some sort of disorder of some sort. But again, many of us view veganism as the answer because of there being some actual evidence that it makes a difference in the world, but that's a whole nother story. Another doctor said, "We see this moral fixation on the virtues of food thrown back into our faces on a daily basis. Instagram can often seem like ground zero for a grotesque display of morally just food choices." So that ties back into that whole conversation about Asina, right? We go on Instagram and we see, wow, if I want that body, I should be eating this food. And we see this on YouTube as well, too. That's something that I'm not really interested in promoting myself because it's a fine line. I have a history with an eating disorder. And in fact, veganism was part of my journey of healing my eating disorder. And this is a longer conversation. I've talked about this on some of my videos on the main Eco Vegan Gal channel. But for me, it was actually the exact opposite. I came into veganism and healed so much, and it became a very positive thing. But I can completely see how the opposite could happen for people, especially with so much social media, people documenting their food choices and other people seeing it as the answer. That is where the danger is. And that's exactly why I think what Asina is doing right now is really, really amazing. And maybe what Jordan is doing is positive in some ways, but also simultaneously damaging, because there might be people who feel sick on the vegan diet and think that it's the vegan diet itself causing their sickness. But reality is that it could just be some tweaks in their nutrition. Jason Robel is a really good example of this. You know, he's been vegan for like 15 something years, and he suffered with depression. What he did is he went to doctors and got his blood tested and figured out exactly what was imbalanced in his body. And so it wasn't veganism that it was the problem. The doctor was completely supportive of him being vegan. It was about that he just had some deficiencies within his body and he needed to find a path to healing it. And coming back around to what happened with Jordan's period, what I wonder is, well, did she just need to shift some things? Was there a way that veganism could support that? Did she go to a doctor that convinced her that veganism was the problem? That can be the really challenging thing with doctors as well, right? It all depends where we get advice from. And for whatever reason, Jordan chose to change her diet, and that is her personal choice. We'll get into personal choices in a moment too. Coming back to the media, some doctors are thinking that the media is causing orthorexia. It's reaching a larger audience and a younger audience. So all of this media out there about the perfect body and the way to get it, how to eat clean, can definitely trigger some orthorexia. And I bet if Instagram had been around when I was a young teenager, I probably would have been in the same boat, because I was incredibly sensitive to that, and I still am. Like it's still challenging for me to go through some social media. It does start to trigger some of those old eating disorder habits that I had, but luckily I've figured out a way to manage that in a way that I wouldn't have as a young teenager. So that's where it becomes a slippery slope. So I think it all comes down to promoting what works for us as individuals, not trying to promote something as a cure-all, as the only answer, as something that's right or wrong, and trying to blast it out as this is going to work for everyone. That's where the extremism comes in. That's where it can become a big problem. I think it's so important for us to really promote what's going on with us in our personal lives, and always remind people that this is our personal opinion and our personal experiences and our personal choices. Jordan says these days she lives without a label, which is much more freeing. Makes sense, right? Some people don't want to have a label. That doesn't mean that you can't be vegan, but you can, whatever else it is. Like the label of veganism was connected to the orthorexia for her, and that was triggering her, right? Now she's all about balance, which I think is super important, but I also feel like balance can be achieved on the vegan diet, and that's just up to debate, right? All right, so I think ultimately it's really unfortunate that Jordan's vegan diet became connected to a disorder she had. Orthorexia is defined as an unhealthy obsession with food. And a doctor said it's not the diet that is orthorexia, it's the diet that can lead to it. The more extreme or restrictive the diet, the more likely it could lead to orthorexia. So orthorexia is not about blaming healthy food. It's about when the desire to eat healthy takes away from the other aspects of a person's life, right? So we could rephrase that and say orthorexia is not about blaming veganism. It's about when the desire to eat vegan takes away from the other aspects of a person's life. And that was the case for Jordan. And again, for us to react and try to shame her with a decision she made, I also feel like isn't really fair. And that's where the next point I want to bring up here is there are people that were threatening her, giving her death threats, telling her that neither she nor her family had the right to live. And I don't feel like she deserved to be treated that way, because who deserves to be treated that way? I mean, maybe like a serial killer, mass murderers, or, some of these people that do horrible things to animals. But I mean, listen, I'm not even going to get into that subject matter right now, but my point being is like death threats, I don't know, I think people use them so liberally these days too. I know so many people who have received death threats, and it's like, really? I hope I never receive a death threat, but at this, it's like we can't even take them seriously, which also makes them very scary in itself. But again, a whole nother topic. My point being is like for vegans to judge her so much and to send her death threats, Jordan made a choice. I understand that it's threatening. I think that all of this information coming out of Jordan right now is probably triggering many vegans to feel defensive. But we also have to remember that we do the same thing. It wasn't too long ago that the World Health Organization put out that study about cancer being linked to processed meats. And what did vegans do? They promoted it all across social media. We were all kind of rejoicing, woohoo, we have, facts that the vegan diet is really healthy. And of course, the non-vegans were in our shoes where they were freaking out because they wanted to defend their non-vegan choices. So we're always going to kind of play these games. This is how the media works. This is what happens when we read the news, watch TV, read social media. We're going to see things. They're going to trigger us. We're going to have reactions. And the important thing to remember is that we're always in control of that. And I think it's important to stay emotionally balanced in those situations and really step back to remember that other people are human as well. We make choices, we make mistakes, we go through ups and downs in life. And right now I'm just trying to extend as much compassion to Jordan as possible and just say, she was a girl that had orthorexia or has orthorexia. And unfortunately, that was connected to veganism. And so for her, the current answer is not to be vegan. What's important is that she's becoming balanced and healthy. The biggest problem I have here is that she's participating in some negative media around veganism. And I think that that's really the thing we should be focusing on. Not Jordan herself, but how can we position veganism in a less extreme way? How can we position veganism in a more balanced, healthy way? How can we show people that the vegan lifestyle and the plant-based diet can actually help people prevent and reverse diseases? And we are doing that. We have so much information out there, like Forks Over Knives movie and books, and all of the books that I'm reading for my series on the main Eco Vegan Gal channel about balancing your body. I mean, there's tons of information out there. So my advice for you is to stop gossiping about this if you are, and stop judging if you are. And if you're not yet, stop yourself in your tracks, prevent it, and extend compassion, and also see how you can further spread the message. How can you promote veganism or whatever choices you're making in the most healthy, balanced way? How can you lead by example? How can you be someone that helps people versus hurts people? I want to do another video about how hurt people hurt other people. That's actually what I was thinking of doing yesterday before all of this breaking vegan stuff came up, but I'll save that for another time. Maybe the next video will be all about that. But I want to end this one as a segue to that, saying just because you're hurt or you're annoyed or you feel threatened by someone doesn't mean that you need to react in a negative way back to them. See how you can promote your beliefs in the most peaceful, harmonious way possible so that you can help more people and just be seen as a shining example of what it means to be the most balanced person in that lifestyle. Jordan was saying she felt like a lot of vegans were very elitist. And then the article was saying she had the last laugh because she got more blog views and Instagram followers. And it's like, it's not a competition. And I don't want vegans to be perceived as elitist or people that are extreme or have death threats. How can we shift that around? Because ultimately, as Asina is proving, authenticity and really striving to be the best person that you can and ripping apart all these emotional issues and the superficial levels are really what's going to lead us to be more connected to one another and to achieve more harmony. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to read your comments. I appreciate you being here and being part of these discussions, even though we're not having a back and forth. It does feel like a discussion, and know that your opinions are valid here too. So leave it in the comments. Be respectful of other people, please. Otherwise, you are not welcome here. I will block anybody who's disrespectful. I'm no tolerance for that. What I tolerate here is a supportive community of people that respect one another, even when they disagree. Thanks again. I'll see you next time here on the Uncensored channel. Until then, you can check out my other channels, the main Eco Vegan Gal channel, the What a Vegan Eats channel, and soon I'll have content on the EVG Venture channel all about business, entrepreneurship, and content creation and all of that. Thanks again, and I'll see you later.